Good morning, students. Hello. Today we will be beginning with the third level chapter, which is the first chapter of Vistas, and it's written by Jack Finney. The author is Jack Finney, and before going into the dealing into the chapter into detail, let's have a brief uh, look into who was Jack Finney. Now, Jack Finney's real name was John Finney, and his pen name was Walter Braden and Jack Finney, and he was born on 2nd of October 1911 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin state of USA. And he died in 14th of November 1995 in California, USA. Now, his best known works are written basically on science fiction and thrillers also, and which includes the famous The Body Snatchers and Again. And he was a novelist and a short story writer. Now, let's begin with this chapter, which is written by Jack Finney. Now, the whole chapter starts with something like the presidents of the New York Central and the New York, New Haven, and Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only two. It seems very a thing which we are unable to understand what the whole thing is able to explain over here. Now, let me tell you some of the meanings and the things given over here in this particular sentence. The president over here means over here they are the station masters of railway station. Now, we are talking of different stations over here. Like first is New York Central and New York Station. Both are different ones. The New Haven and Hartford. Now, ahead of it is written as railroads, my dear students. Railroad is meant by rail tracks, or we can it represents over here in this chapter as a railway station also. And so in this way the whole sentence means that if the station master actually of these different stations will swear on a stack of timetables. Now let me tell you that swear on a stack of timetables is actually humorously modified idiom taken from a different idiom, which is to swear on a stack of Bibles, or you can say it's a thing which tells us to take an oath. Now, as for Christians, it's to if a person has to take an oath, the person will keep hand on a Bible and will take oath, or a Muslim will keep their hand on Quran, will take an oath. The Hindus will keep their hands on the Gita and will take oath. So here we see the same thing as the same way for the station masters as for the people who are working in the railway department. The book of timetables is as sacred for them because they have to move accordingly to the timetables. Now this mentions over here that according is swear on a stack of timetables that there are only two. The whole sentence means that there are only two platforms over there on the station, New York Central Station over there. But as we move ahead, we come to know there is a third level also, as the chapter's heading is also given over here. Now this might seem confusing, but as we'll move ahead, we'll come to know what this third level was actually. It wasn't a reality, it wasn't true, but it was something where actually the narrator Charlie wanted to have an escape from the burdens of life actually over here, and it was his waking dream of fulfillment that he wanted to have. It was something that was not true, but he wished that it would come true and he would have such a moment in life. Now moving ahead, but I say there are three. I over here is the narrator over here, my dear students, and he is Charlie. There are three according to Charlie, because I have been on the third level. He says that he has been on the third level or in the third story of the station, of the New York Central Station or Grand Central Station. Grand Central Station, my dear students, and New York Central stations are the same thing. They are the name of the same station. Now moving ahead, so I said there are three because I've been on the third level, on the third story of the Grand Central Station. Yes, I've taken the obvious step. I talked to a psychiatrist. What he did was, that was very clear, that it was necessary to take the help of a psychiatrist friend, because this was something which was unusual. The third level did not existed, and as I say, there are three, and as the narrator says over here, there are three actually. So it could be a problem related to the mind, could be a problem related to the brain, and so that is why some problem was there, and that is why he wanted to consult it to the psychiatrist friend of his. And I told him about the third level of Grand Central Station, and he said it was a waking dream fulfillment. Waking dream wish fulfillment. As I told you earlier in the video of the introduction, that waking dream wish fulfillment means actually a thing which is actually a dream, which is actually not a reality, but we want something that it should have been real, it should have been true, and the things that we wanted to happen. Now he said I was unhappy. The psychiatrist friend of Charlie said that he was unhappy, and that made my wife kind of mad. And when the wife of Charlie actually heard this, the name of the wife isn't given over here right now, but we'll come to know, and we'll come to know later on that the name of the wife was Louisa. Now moving ahead, so that made my wife kind of mad, but he explained that he meant a modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, and all the rest of it. This shows a different kind of worries that we people actually face in daily life, and we see that here this person Charlie is also facing these kind of things. So, and he is feeling the same kind of insecurity. He is feeling the same kind of danger. He is feeling unsafe. He has fear. He fears war. He has a lot of worries of his life, and that is why he wants to escape from all these things. Well, who doesn't want to in such a situation? If any person would be having such kind of problems, who wouldn't be wanting? Everybody I know wants to escape, but they don't wander down in any third level at Grand Central Station. Yes, people would want to move away from their troublesome life. They would go to some hill station. They might be going to the sea beach to have fun. They might be going to meet some of their friends to meet. They might be going to their relatives to meet them. Take some lovely time watching the movie, or some lovely time doing something other thing. So, but they don't wander down in any third level at Grand Central Station, which actually does not exist over here. We come to know that there is no third level actually in existence. But that's the reason he said my friends all agreed. And this is the reason he and his friends had agreed. Everything points to it. They claimed, means the friends had claimed, they had declared my stamp collecting. They were all just because Charlie had this fascination of collection of stamp collecting. And for example, that's a temporary refuge. It's a temporary shelter that a person of having of any kind of such thing, a refuge or shelter of stamp collecting. Well, maybe, but my grandfather didn't need any refuge from reality. According to Charlie, it wasn't something that the grandfather didn't have to face in his life when he was alive, but he is facing right now. Things were pretty nice and peaceful in his days. They were peaceful, it was lovely in his time. That time was somewhat around 1890s, as I told you in the introduction also. From all I hear, and he started my collection. We come to know that he started doing his collection. The grandfather started doing the collection, and seeing that this fascination of stamp collecting also was later on done by the grandson, and that is the narrator Charlie over here. It is a nine collection. It is a nice collection too. Blocks of four of practically every US issue of every topic. There is a stamp over there. The first day covers. Now, my dear student, let me tell you what first day cover is. Now, generally, my dear students, stamps whenever are issued by the government, if it is a special one, whenever a new stamp is issued, so what happens ki there are some people who are philanthropists who love stamp collecting. What they do try to make a first day cover. Now the question stands, what is first day cover is? Now, dear students, first day cover means when a new postal stamp is issued by the government, stamp collectors buy some and use them to mail envelopes to themselves only. And on the very first day of the sale, when it happens actually, which means ki when it is actually being issued by the government, they are actually buying on the same date and they are posting themselves to themselves only. The letter is being posted to themselves only on the very first day of sale, when the postmark proves the date also. Whenever a letter is actually posted, my dear students, the post office puts a stamp over it which has the name, where the particular place is, where the post has come to, and the next thing is date on the stamp. Now, my dear students, it obviously it would be having the very first day of the sale also in a form of a stamp over there, and the postmark proves the date. When that postmark is put over there, when the stamp is put over there by the post office, so it tells us the real date. Now the envelope is called a first day cover. So this is a first day cover for philanthropists, and they are never opened. These kind of letters are never opened, and you just put a blank paper in the envelope. It's a kind of envelope in which a blank paper is kept. You just seal it, put a stamp over it, which is newly issued by the government. You put a stamp over it, and then you mail it to yourself only, to the same address. When it goes to the post office, a stamp is put over there. The name of the city is over there, and the date on which issued and the date on which it is actually being sent to the person is put over there. So it means over there ki the date of which it is actually it was issued and the date is actually which was posted are generally the same things, and they both are the same and they are over there only. And it's a lovely thing for philanthropists who actually loves collecting stamps. First day covers are lovely thing to happen. Now let's come back to the topic over here. So block of 4 of practically every US issue, then and first day covers and so on. President Roosevelt collected stamps too. Even President Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt of America, he also did a lot of stamp collecting. Anyway, here's what happened at Grand Central Station once. What happened one night? Last summer, I worked late at the office. Now, the narrator over here, Charlie, worked late at night, and when he was about to return, I was in a hurry to get to Uptown. Uptown means back to the city from where he came from his house. So, where his house was. So, I was in a hurry to get uptown to my apartment. So, I decided to take a subway. He wanted to take a metro station, to a metro rail from Grand Central Station, because it's faster than the bus, and so he could easily quickly reach home. Now I don't know why this should have happened to me. I really do not know. I am just an ordinary guy named Charlie. Now here the narrator opens here his name over here, that his name is Charlie, who is 31 years old. He is not too old. He is 31 years old, so you can say he is young. And I was wearing a tan gabardine suit. Tan means of yellowish brownish color. Gabardine means a long loose upper suit. As you could see in the picture, if you students are having a book right ahead in front of you, you could see that in the picture also, that's drawn on the page. Now I was wearing a tan gabardine suit and a straw hat, as again you could see in the pic. a hat made of straw with a fancy band over it on it. I passed a dozen men who looked just like me. He just passed many people who were just looking like him, and I wasn't trying to escape from anything. He didn't wanted to actually escape from anything, and I just wanted to get home to his own wife. The name of the wife, Louisa, is revealed over here. The name of the wife of the narrator, Charlie, is Louisa. We come to know over here. Now, my dear students, I turned into the Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue. My dear students, it's written over here, I turned into Grand Central Station from Vanderbilt Avenue. Now, Grand Central Station, there's a place near Vanderbilt Avenue, is a place which is near the Grand Central Station. The narrator actually came from the way of the Vanderbilt Avenue. Now, let me tell you something about Vanderbilt Avenue. It's not given in the books, but for your just for your information, I want to tell you Vanderbilt Avenue. It is actually a name of it. Three thoroughfares in the New York City boroughs of Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Staten Island, and they are named after Cornelius Vanderbilt, and he was the builder of Grand Central Terminal also, who built the Grand Terminal Station. Okay, so this building is important in this way if we come to know. So this is an important one. Now, and went back to the steps, went down the steps to the first level. So we come to know over here that he started moving to the first level when where you take trains like the 12th century, generally the good ones you can say. Okay, then I walked down another flight of stairs in the second level. Flight to the second level means a stair is taken which leads him to the second level or to the second floor, where the suburban trains leave from, where actually the suburban trains, the trains that actually took the people from the city to the village area. So that's the suburban trains actually came and stopped over there, and they left it from over there. Ducked into an arched doorway. Ducked means lower down, and from that particular place there were more stairs going down deep inwards, below, downwards, and led lower down into an arched doorway heading for the subway. Now this particular stairs took to a particular platform where there was a subway available for where he wanted to go actually. But what happened? He actually got lost over there when he came down. He thought that he got lost, and that's easy to do. I've been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times. He had been on this Grand Central Station for hundreds of times, but I'm always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. He found whenever he came over there, every time there he sometimes got lost on the Grand Central Station. There were numerous stairs over there, numerous doors were over there, corridors over there. So he used to get lost over there. Now moving ahead, once I got into a tunnel about a mile long. So once what happened that he actually got into a tunnel which was about a mile long and came into actually a lobby over there. A lobby is actually, my dear students, an entrance hall which is connected to other hall or passages. So he actually entered into a lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel. Now, my dear student, Roosevelt Hotel, let me tell you, this Roosevelt Hotel is also very special. It's a historic, luxurious hotel. It's located on the 45th Street, which is present between the Madison Avenue and Vanderbilt Avenue. The hotel was named in the honor of President Theodore Roosevelt, and it was opened on 22nd of September 1924. The architect was George B. Post and Sons, and the number of rooms present in this Roosevelt Hotel are 1015 rooms present over here, and there are 52 suites also. Suites is a group of rooms for some very lavish kind of living where people actually afford to live in such kind of rooms. So there were about 52 suites. There are 52 suites available in Roosevelt Hotel. The owner of Roosevelt Hotel, my dear students, is Pakistan International Airlines. Now let's come back to the text, my dear students. Another time I came into an office building on 46th Street. Now, where he actually came upon now, after moving into that particular lobby, what he saw that he actually had come in the office building on 46th Street, and it was actually 3 blocks away. 3 blocks away means three colonies away, you can say, 3 areas away, you can say. So this is New York is a well designed city actually. So every colony is made actually in a kind of a block. So that's why it's called, the colonies are called as blocks over there. In India, we see this. We use the same word block over here in Chandigarh also. Chandigarh is also a well designed city. From the earlier way, we can say it was established by the Britishers and it's well established. So there also the block numbers are utilized over there. So here we come to know that actually this Charlie actually from the lobby actually reached 46th Street over there, and it was 3 blocks away. It was actually 3 colonies away. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree. What sometimes the narrator Charlie thinks over here is actually that it is this particular station is growing, pushing out new corridors, making new verandas, new galleries, new verandas, and staircases just like roots. And they are increasing in number. They are probably long tunnel. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about. There's probably a tunnel over there, and there's nobody knows about. Feeling it's way under the city right now. It's right under the New York City. It's below the ground level. It's underground, and on its way to Times Square. Times Square again is the name of a place, and maybe to another to Central Park, and maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit. This particular Grand Central has been an exit for people to come and go, a way of escape also. Maybe that's how tunnel I got into. And this is the reason that the narrator Charlie says that this is a means of escape for him, and and that's how he got into this tunnel. But I never told my psychiatrist friend about this idea because he felt might be the friend would be making a fun of him, and that is why I didn't told this stuff to his psychiatrist friend. Now the corridor I was in began angling left. Corridor means the galley that was actually over there began angling left or turning left and slanting downwards or stepping downstairs, you can say, my dear students. And I thought that was wrong, but I kept on still walking. The narrator over here is saying that he is kept on still walking over there, and all I could hear was the empty sound of my own steps. He was alone over there, nobody else was over there. As I told earlier, this is a waking dream, my dear students, which he actually wanted to fulfill. So all I could hear that was the empty sound of his own footsteps, and I didn't pass a soul. I didn't pass a soul means he was alone over there. The narrator was alone over there. Charlie was alone over there. No one was present on that particular area. Then I heard that a sort of hollow roar ahead, that means an open space. Then what he heard, the narrator felt over here, there's a sound ahead coming from ahead. It means ki the air is coming from that area. It means ki certainly there is an opening nearby. Now there I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead, that means open space and people talking, and he could hear the people talking over there. My dear students, the tunnel turned sharp left, and then what he saw was that the tunnel turned sharp left, and I went down a short of flight of stairs. So after turning left, there were stairs over there. There were some steps of stairs over there, and he came out on the 3rd level, which didn't existed ever, but he thought that he had reached this particular point of 3rd level, or the 3rd level of the Grand Central Station. For just a moment, I thought I was back on the 2nd level. For a moment, he thought that perhaps It was on the second level only, because there was no existence of third level on the Grand Central Station, and it is still there is no existence of third level. My dear students, let's move ahead. So, but I was in the but I saw the room. I was smaller. He was in a particular room that was actually much smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates. There were fewer ticket windows. Windows means that there's a particular place from where you actually buy the tickets. So the ticket window was actually, there were very few, and there were train gates. Now it's not like in India, as we have that we people go and enter into the platform over there, and the platform is all open. Generally, in these rich countries, the whole of the platform is covered, and there are doors right in front of where actually the doors open for the people to come, which are coming from the train, and they want to enter into the platform. So it's all covered, it's all boundaried. So nobody, no intruder actually can come over there also. So in this way we come to know. But so what he saw, the narrator saw was, what I saw, the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates over there, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking. So what he saw over here was that it was an old looking ticket window over there, and that was looking something very old, made of wood, and the man in the booth wore a green shade. The man sitting over there in this particular booth over there, who was selling actually the tickets over there. So he was wearing a green eye shade. Eye shade means a translucent visor or goggles, you can say, my dear students, which is used to protect eyes from strong lights. And he was wearing long black sleeve protectors. Now, sleeve protectors is actually designed to protect the wearer against injuries caused by the electric shock, chemicals, heat, or dust maybe. So, and the light were dim and not the ones good that we have in the 20th century, 21st century in our times. So it was not as lovely at that particular time in 1890s actually. The lights were dim and the sort of flickering. Flickering means shining, but shining unsteadily. Then I saw why they were open flame gas lights. What he saw was something very different. Today we people are having lights, electrical lights over there on the stations, on the platforms. But he is telling over here that what he saw was there were gas lights over there. So gaslight is actually a kind of a lamp, my dear students, in which an incandescent mantelpiece is heated by a jet of burning gas, and then it starts glowing, and it gives the shine and light and produces some light so that people can actually see. Now moving to the next page, on page 4, my dear students, there were brass spittoons on the floor. Spittoons is actually, my dear students, a particular utensil which is used to spit over there. Okay. Now, and across the station, a glint of light caught my eye. Glint of light means a shining of light actually caught his eye. A man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. So people, we generally today we keep watches on the wrist only, so and that's why it's called as wrist watches. But in earlier times, mostly people used to have their vest watches, or you can say pocket watches, and they kept it in their breast pocket or in the chest pocket in the shirts. So gold watch from his vest pocket, and he snapped open the cover, and there was a cover of the watch, and he opened the watch and to see the time, and he glanced at his watch, and he looked at his watch and frowned. He disliked, and he wore a derby hat. He was wearing a derby hat, and a derby hat, my dear students, is a round hat and with a narrow brim actually, and a black 4-button suit with tiny lapels. Okay, so he was wearing a 4-button suit, and that had tiny lapels. Lapels is actually the part of each side of a coat or jacket, you can say, in which in which below the collar actually it's folded on either side of the front opening. So it generally starts where my shirt's collar is. So it generally starts from below this. So this is the below part of this where when we are actually wearing the coat. So it's actually like that type. Now moving ahead. So 4-button suit with tiny lapels, and he had a big black handlebar mustache. So he had a big black handlebar means curved mustache. Mustache means mustache. Then I looked around and I saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890s something. So what he saw was something very different from his wearing, from his clothing. And what he saw that people all over present over there, they were all wearing the stuff that was actually a lot around 1890s. I never saw so many beards. He never saw so many beards because mostly people now don't like to keep beards and they like to be clean shaved. So people at that time like to have beards and sideburns. Sideburns is actually a strip of hair grown by men each down of the face in front of their ears. So like as this is a sideburn. This is a sideburn. And fancy mustaches in his life. Now, a woman walked in through the train gate. So, a woman came actually through the train gate and she wore a dress with a leg of mutton sleeves. My dear students, leg of mutton sleeve is actually a sleeve which is full and loose on the upper arm but close fitting on the forearm and wrist. So, she was wearing a leg of mutton sleeves and skirt and to the top of her high buttoned shoes. So even the shoes were high and they were buttoned shoes. Back of her out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse or he just caught a view of a locomotive or an engine. You can say a railway engine, you can say a very small Currier and Ives locomotives. Locomotive is actually a powered railway vehicle or engine, you can say, which is used for pulling trains, my dear students. With a funnel shaped stack, and a stack is actually from which part of the engine the smoke comes out, that is actually a stack. And then I knew, to make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and he just wanted to confirm that he had actually in a past age, he is in a particular gone so many years back, so he wanted to confirm that whether it's true or whether it's not. So he just went to a newsboy. So a newsboy is actually a boy who sells or delivers newspapers, my dear students. So he went to a newsboy and had so many glance at the stack of the papers at his feet, and it was the World, and the World hasn't been published for years. My dear students, the World over here represents the name of a newspaper, and it wasn't published for many years. That particular newspaper was published during the time of 1890s, but it was not during this time of when the narrator Charlie, this newspaper wasn't being published by that time. Or you can say 100 or 120 years later, this newspaper wasn't being printed by that time. So, but he could see this newspaper right in front of his eyes. Now let's move ahead. It says the lead story said something about President Cleveland. Now, my dear student, President Cleveland, let me tell you something about it. President Cleveland, the full name of President Cleveland was Stephen Grover Cleveland. He was born on 18th of March 1837 and he died in 24th of June and 1908. He was the 22nd and the 24th President of USA and the only president in American history to serve for 2 non-consecutive terms in office from 1885 to 1889 and 1893 to 1897. He was the 28th Governor of New York. He was the 34th Mayor of Buffalo and he was the 17th Sheriff of the Erie County also, and he was a lawyer too, my dear student. So he had a lot of knowledge, and he had worked on so many different positions over there. We come to know by this. So the lead story on the newspaper was something regarding President Cleveland. I found that the front page since in the public library, and it was published, it was printed over there June 11, 1894. You had seen this stuff in the stuff which was present in the library, my dear students, and the date over here was actually June 11, 1894, what he had actually seen over there in the newspaper. Now I turned towards the ticket windows, knowing that here on the third level at Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States. We wanted to go. He thought that yes, it's very lovely that I have come so many years back. So obviously, the currency that he would be having a lot much more currency compared to that old time currency, and hence in this way. So obviously he thought that he would be having a lot of money and he could spend it, and he would be having so much money that he could go actually in any part of USA and could visit any place over there. So that's what over here he wanted to actually buy tickets, and he wanted to take his wife anywhere in United States, wherever he wanted to. In the year 1894, I wanted two tickets. He wanted two tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. Now, Galesburg is the name of a city. Illinois is the name of the states, my dear students. Galesburg is a city in Illinois, and this city is actually 45 miles northwest of Peoria. Now, have you ever been there? It's a wonderful town still, with big old frame houses, huge lawns. It's a lovely place to over there. There are old frame houses, big houses over there, huge lawns over there, and tremendous trees over there. A good place where anyone would like to go and live over there, you can say. Huge lawns and tremendous trees over there, and so, and whose branches meet overhead and roofs in the street. So big houses, lovely houses. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long as and people sat out on their lawns. It was something like Charlie was doing the work till late night, and he was returning late night to his back to his house. It was a time actually of 1894 when people actually had a lot of time in the evening, and they spent a lot of time with their family. Let's move ahead. So summer evenings were twice as long, and people sat out on the lawns, and the men were found smoking cigars and talking quietly. The women waving their palm leaf fans over there, and to have the air, and with the fireflies all around. Fireflies is actually a soft-bodied beetle which has luminescent organs, my dear students. In Hindi, you call it jugnu. In a peaceful world, to be back there with the First World War, still 20 years off. It was still about 20 years that the First World War hasn't happened. And the World War II, over 40 years in the future, I wanted two tickets for that. And he wanted two tickets for this particular place, Galesburg, Illinois. He wanted two tickets, one for himself and second for his wife, Louisa. Now the clerk who was there and sitting in the window over there, in the ticket window over there, he figured the fare. He checked the fare, how much the fare would be, because he wanted to go to Galesburg, Illinois. And so he glared at my fancy headband. He saw that this man was looking lovely, and right in front of it, the narrator was looking lovely. But he figured the fare had enough for two coach tickets, and what he thought was, the narrator thought that he had actually a lot of money for going one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at him actually. Staring at him, the clerk was actually gazing at him, and the clerk was looking at him, and he nodded at the bills. Nodded means he refused at the bills. Bills means currency notes. So he refused the currency notes, and that aren't money, mister. So the clerk said, that aren't money, mister. Aren't means isn't. This isn't money, mister. Sorry, sir, these notes are not valid. Now, my dear students, just because the narrator had gone about 100 years back or 120 years back, so the currency notes hadn't been printed since then. So these were the notes. These currency notes were not available at that point of time. So these were invalid in that particular 100 years back, you can say, my dear students. So that on money, mister, he said, and if you are talking, if you are trying to skin me, if you are trying to test me, you won't get too far. You won't get too far. You won't get very far. And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him, and so that is why he looked at the cash drawer which was beside him, and of course the money was old style bills. Then now what Charlie actually saw, it was all old currency notes over there, half again as big and as the money we use nowadays, and different looking. It was also different looking notes. I turned away and got out fast. So that is why he just turned away. Simply then the person might get caught. This person might call the police. This person, the clerk, might call the police and get the man arrested in such a situation. That is why the narrator Charlie leave the place over there, and different looking, and I turned away and got out fast. And there's nothing nice about jail, even in 1894, even it was a lot earlier, it was something not lovely to think even about. And that was that. And that was the real thing, my dear students. I left the same way I came. Okay, so he left the place, and I suppose next day during the lunch hour, I drew about $300 out of the bank. What he took was he took about $300 from the bank, and nearly all what money he had actually, and bought old currency notes that really worried his psychiatrist friend. This the whole thing of changing the money of the real currency with the old currency note, this actually worried the friend of Charlie, who was a psychiatrist. Now you can buy old money at almost any coin dealers, but you have to pay a premium. Now the thing is this, when you are buying some money and which is old currency, a person will have to give a premium or something more money along with the amount of money which you are asking actually for. So that's a premium money, and he paid actually that also to have that, to get the things changed, my dear students. Now my $300 bought less than 200 in old style bills. So when he got it converted, so what he found actually was the total amount of currency in the old currency, it was less than $200 in the old style bills or in the old currency notes. But I didn't care. But Charlie didn't care anything about it. Eggs were 13 cents a dozen in 1894, my dear students. So as we have paisa in India, so there's cent in United States of America. As we have rupee over here, there's dollar in United States of America. So eggs were about 13 cents a dozen in 1894. Now 1 cent is actually the 1/100th of a dollar, and $1 in nowadays it's actually about 46.6 rupees. And if you see about the cent one, so 1 cent is about 66 paisa. So let's move ahead now. But I have never again found in the corridor that leads to the Grand level at the Grand Central Station. Although I tried often enough, he tried to find that third level again. Louisa was pretty worried about it when he actually told about this whole thing of going into the third level, and he had actually changed the money whatever he had. So the wife Louisa was actually a lot worried about that. And after a while I stopped. I went back to my stamps. He again went back to his stamps, what he had collected. But now we were both looking every weekend, because now we have proof that the third level is still there. After looking into the stamps, he found something which he actually thought that the thing exists, the third level exists over there. And that is why both husband and wife started looking for the third level. Because now we have proved that the third level is still there. My friend Sam Wiener disappeared. And his friend actually, Charlie's friend, his name was Sam Wiener, and he had disappeared. Nobody knew where. Nobody knew where he had gone, but I sort of suspected because Sam's a city boy, a person living in the city. I used to tell him about Galesburg. He used to tell about the Galesburg, which is old style city, you can say, or old style village, you can say, at that time in 1890s when we were talking of. So I went to school there, and he always said he liked the sound of the place. What actually Sam Wiener told him was that he liked that particular place, and that's where he is all right in 1894. And this is one of the reason that he had skipped. Sam Wiener had also skipped from the real situations of today's life, of hectic life, and he had also gone to Galesburg, Illinois, in the past back on the third level, and he is over there in Galesburg, Illinois, over there, and that is why he couldn't be found by people. Now I went to school there. And he always said he liked the sound of place, and as there he is in the right. He is all right in 1894. Now because one night fussing means excessive concern with my stamp collection, I found. Well, do you know what a first day cover is, my dear students? Now the meaning of first day cover is revealed over here. I told you a lot earlier, but it's revealed over here in the chapter 2. When a new stamp is issued, a stamp collectors buy some and use them to mail envelopes to themselves only on the very first day of sale, and the postmark proves the date, and the envelope is a first day cover, as I told you. Now the envelope is a first day cover. They are never open. They are just put back paper. They just put a blank paper in the envelope. And that night, among my oldest first day cover, I found one that shouldn't have been there, but there it was. It was there because someone had mailed it to my grandfather at his home. And first day cover, who used to mail it? The person himself actually used to mail it. So grandfather actually had the same thing. He was a philanthropist. He loved stamps collection, and in this way he had a lot of first day covers also. And so someone had mailed it to my grandfather at his home in Galesburg over there, which is a city of Illinois, as I told you earlier. And that's what the address on the envelope said. And I had been there since July 18th, 1894. Now, my dear students, it had been there since July 1894. The postmark showed that. So the stamp over there would have the date and city, or that it showed that this particular place is Galesburg, and the date is of July 18, 1894, and the postmark shows that. Yet I didn't remember it at all, and the stamp was 6 cents at that time, and it was a dull brown with a picture of President Garfield over there, my dear students. Now President Garfield is one more president of United States of America. His full name was James Abraham Garfield. He was born on 19th of November 1831, and he died in 19th of September 1881, and was the 20th president of United States of America, serving from 4th of March 1881 until his death by assassination. He was assassinated, which happened 6.5 months later. Now, naturally, when the envelope came to Granddad in the mail, it went right into his collection and stayed over there. So it was over there until I took it out and opened it. The paper inside wasn't blank. Now, generally, I told you that generally people who keep such kind of things as blank paper in the first day's cover, this paper wasn't blank. It was filled. And what was it written on it? Let's read it. The paper inside it wasn't blank, and it read, so the address was over it, 941 Willard Street, Galesburg, Illinois. That was the address given over there, my dear students. Then the date was given over there, July 18, 1894. It was written to Charlie. So I got to wishing that you were right, and then I got to believing you were right, And Charlie, it's true, yes, it's true that I'm here. I found the third level. I found the third level. I've been here for 2 weeks, and right now down the street at Daly's. Now, Daly's, my dear student, is actually a city in California state of United States of America. Someone is playing a piano and they are all out in front of the porch. They are all over there in front of the porch. The porch is actually a covered shelter projecting in front of the entrance of a building or in front of the house, you can say. So people are all collected over there, and to hear that playing of the piano, and the song was being sung, Seeing Nelly Home, and I'm invited over for lemonade. You can just think, people, how could a lemonade party could happen actually, but we come to know over here that in the older times people actually had parties even of lemonade also. So lemonade is actually a drink made from lemon juice and water sweetened with sugar. So come on back, Charlie and Louisa. Keep looking till you find the third level. It's worth, believe me. So it was a letter written to Charlie, written by grandfather, and the grandfather was over there. And so it was, the name was of the grandfather was written over there. The note is signed as Sam. And the stamp and the coin store I found out that Sam bought about $800 over there. So sorry, my dear friends, not the grandfather, but the friend Sam Vina. Actually, I found out that Sam had actually bought $800, which were actually old style bills, which were old style currency, and that ought that probable to set him up in a nice little hay. Hay is actually a fodder for animals, feed and grain business. And he always said that's what he really wished he could be. He could be staying in this particular place, lovely place where they have a lot of time to spend with the family actually and have fun. And he certainly can't go back to his old business. No, he just can't go back to his earlier business, which he was actually doing at that time of being a psychiatrist, not in Galesburg. Galesburg doesn't need such kind of people of psychiatrists, because this is a particular place. Because psychiatrists, the work of psychiatrists actually is to look into the problems related to the brain, something which a person did not had, people did not had in 1890s. So people were living happily at that point of time, and they did not wanted. So there was no use of this profession of the psychiatrist over there in that particular age. So not in Galesburg, Illinois in 1894, his whole business, why Sam was my psychiatrist. And he thought why was actually Sam was his psychiatrist. Thank you, my dear students. With this, we come to the end of the chapter, the third level. Thank you.